Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us on Velayat News. I'm Abroo Sabzwari, and now a look at the headlines for today. 22 Taliban militants killed in NATO airstrikes in Afghanistan. In Syria, rebels turn against each other in a struggle for power. 5 people killed in Bangladesh after protests turned violent. In Iraq, violence continues as 9 people were killed in multiple attacks across the country. Russian President Vladimir Putin says the U.S. trapped NSA leaker Snowden in Russia. In India, the death toll in the North Indian floods hits near 6,000. 4 Shia Hazara were shot and martyred in Quetta, Pakistan by Taliban terrorists. CARE Oklahoma hosts the 5th annual Muslim Youth Leadership Symposium. And now, the news in detail. At least 22 Taliban militants have been killed in 2 separate airstrikes launched by U.S.-led foreign forces in the Afghan provinces of Paktia and Ghazni. The Taliban have made no remarks so far on the attacks. Meanwhile, reports say that many people in Kunar province of eastern Afghanistan have left their villages and sought refuge in other provinces due to the rise in the number of airstrikes. The United States and its allies invaded Afghanistan as part of Washington's war on terror. The offensive removed the Taliban from power, but insecurity continues to rise across Afghanistan despite the presence of the thousands of U.S.-led troops.
As there is no ceasefire so far, we have 2 options.
In late April, the Taliban announced the start of their annual spring offensive against the U.S.-led and Afghan forces, vowing a new wave of attacks across Afghanistan. The militant group said it would use every possible tactic to inflict casualties on Afghan and U.S.-led forces. On Syria's front lines, Al-Qaeda fighters and Syrian rebels have turned against each other in a power struggle that has undermined the effort to topple Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. After violent clashes and the assassination of 2 rival commanders, one of whom was beheaded, more moderate factions are publicly accusing the extremists of trying to seize control of the rebellion. The rivalries, along with efforts by extremist foreign fighters, are chipping away at the movement's popularity in Syria at a time when the government is making significant advances on the ground. The infighting, which exploded into the open in the country's rebel-held north in the recent days, is contributing to a sense across many parts of Syria that the revolution has faltered. It threatens to fracture an opposition movement that has been plagued by division from the start. Syrian rebels have carried out public executions, floggings, and mass arrests, fueling the backlash against them. In one prominent case in Aleppo last month, Al-Qaeda-linked militants executed a 15-year-old boy, Muhammad Qatta, accusing him of being an infidel for mentioning Islam's prophet Muhammad in vain. Gunmen shot the boy dead in front of his parents near a stand where he sold coffee, in a killing that sparked rare local protests against them. In many parts of Aleppo and Idlib and Homs, where a suffocating stalemate has been in place since last year, residents say their support and patience for the rebels is fraying. At least 5 people have been killed and dozens others injured in a protest against a jail term given to a former leader of Bangladesh's largest Islamic party. Bangladeshi security sources say the activists were killed in separate incidents of violence across the various towns of the volatile country on Monday evening. The violence erupted after the International Crimes Tribunal convicted Ghulam Azam, one of Jamaat-e-Islami's high-profile leaders, of masterminding atrocities during the 1971 War of Independence. Azam was sentenced to 90 years in prison. The 91-year-old has denied the allegations, and his supporters argue that they are politically motivated. Several regional and international human rights groups say the tribunal which tried Azam fell short of international standards. The opposition Jamaat-e-Islami has called for a nationwide strike to protest the verdict. The top leaders so far have been convicted by the controversial tribunal for their role in mass killings during the war, which saw what was then East Pakistan break from Islamabad. This comes while the opposition accuses the government of seeking to intimidate them by trying their leaders for alleged war crimes committed more than 40 years ago. People have taken to the streets of Dhaka and some other cities several times to protest against controversial trials of opposition activists and leaders. More than 150 people have been killed in clashes with police since the beginning of this year. At least 9 people have been killed and several others injured in a fresh wave of attacks that rocked the country of Iraq. According to the police, Monday's deadliest attack was a mortar bombardment near a group of people gathered by the Tigris River near Samarra, about 60 miles north of Baghdad. 4 people were killed in the mortar shelling, including a 10-year-old boy, and 11 others were wounded. A car bomb went off near a passing security patrol in the northern city of Kirkuk, killing a policeman and wounding 11 other people, including 4 civilians. Hours later, a car bomb targeted an army checkpoint near Kirkuk, killing 2 soldiers. Meanwhile, in South Baghdad, unknown gunmen attacked a security checkpoint, killing 2 soldiers and wounding 4 others. Monday's attacks came a day after a wave of attacks across Iraq, mostly targeting Shia Muslims, killed 45 people. Attacks in Iraq have killed an average of 27 people per day since the beginning of July. More than 2,800 people have been killed since the start of the month of April. Russian President Vladimir Putin says the United States has trapped American whistleblower Edward Snowden in Moscow by frightening other countries that might have accepted his asylum request. Snowden, who is staying in the transit area of Moscow's main international airport, has been charged with espionage for allegedly disclosing secret U.S. government spying programs.
As a basis by which to limit or interfere with my right to enjoy that asylum. Some governments in
The Russian president also expressed his anger over Washington's policies regarding Snowden, who arrived in Russia from Hong Kong on June 23rd. Putin also noted that Snowden was winding down his political activity against the U.S. He previously said he would grant Snowden asylum if he stopped his work aimed at inflicting damage on their American partners. The United States has been pressing Russia not to grant asylum to Snowden, and Washington has also been pressuring other countries not to take him, particularly Latin America, where Venezuela, Bolivia, and Nicaragua have said they are willing to grant him asylum. Human rights groups say the Obama administration is violating the whistleblower's rights to have his asylum request considered fairly. The government in the northern Indian state of Uttarakhand says nearly 6,000 people who went missing in last month's flash floods north of the country are presumed dead. Tourists, pilgrims, and local residents were swept away when floods caused by torrential monsoon rains hit the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand in June. Some 1,000 people were confirmed dead at the time, and thousands of others were listed as missing. Local officials say more than 5,700 people missing will now be presumed dead, and the process of compensating their families will begin imminently. The Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, Vijay Bahuguna, said that compensation to their families will begin on Tuesday on the assumption that they, the missing, are dead. Meanwhile, many of the affected regions are still cut off as connecting roads have been washed away. The local administration has announced that the temple town of Kedarnath, one of the worst affected areas, will be closed to the public in the several coming months. Hundreds of relief workers are also struggling to provide relief to communities in remote towns where thousands who have lost their homes are living in temporary shelters. In Pakistan, 4 Shia Hazara Muslims were martyred when armed militants of spy Sahaba opened fire at their vehicle near Kaghan Hotel on Masjid Road in Quetta on Monday. Raza Hussain, whose vehicle was fired at, was the owner of an electronics shop in the area and was going home after closing shop, adding that the incident took place shortly before iftar. The dead bodies were shifted to a hospital while police officials cordoned off the area for further investigation. All 4 men sitting in the vehicle were seriously wounded and succumbed to their injuries on their way to the hospital. The attackers, who were on a motorcycle, easily managed to escape after the attack. Balochistan suffers from sectarian violence stemming from rising extremist militancy and a nationalist insurgency waged by separatists. Sectarian militants have repeatedly targeted Queta's ethnic Hazaras, carrying out several attacks and bombings on the minority community. Monday's incident comes exactly 2 weeks after a deadly suicide bombing by Lashkar-e-Jhangmi at a Quetta Imam Bargah, which killed 30 members of the Hazara community. CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, a leading civil rights group, hosted the 5th annual Muslim Youth Leadership Symposium in Oklahoma State. Gathering young, enlightened, outspoken Muslim youth, CARE hosted its annual youth program designed to inspire American Muslim youth to increase their civic engagement and empower them to reclaim the image of Islam through positive social activism. Adam Sultani, the executive director of the CARE Oklahoma chapter, said this is the only leadership program of its kind in the heartland which combines an American Muslim identity with the nation's rich civil rights tradition. He added that our goal is to inspire future leaders to work together to make Oklahoma a better place for individuals from all walks of life. The 5th annual Muslim Youth Leadership Symposium was held under the theme A Lasting Impress, Building Our Legacy, and included 50 symposium participants who were selected through an application process from across Oklahoma. The event organizers said they were keen on encouraging young leaders to be social and community activists with the goal of working toward a better Oklahoma state. According to the Pew Research Center, there are approximately 1.6 billion Muslims in the world, making up 23% of the world's population and making Islam the 2nd largest religion after Christianity. During this holy month of Ramadan, we request all of you to please remember the Muslim families and innocent children suffering all across the world today in places such as Syria, Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, Palestine, Turkey, Egypt, and wherever else the Muslim Ummah is facing turmoil and dire circumstances. Please also remember to pray for and support the families of shuhada who are being brutally tortured and killed. And that brings us to the end of our bulletin today. If you'd like to contribute your community's news, you can email us at news@VelayatTV.org. You can also get the latest headlines and more by visiting our website, VelayatTV.org, or subscribe to and follow us on our YouTube and Facebook pages, Velayat TV USA. Many thanks for joining us. Till next time, I'm Abroo Sabzwari. Fi amanillah.